Rated R. Restricted.
There you go.
You know, like so many people who have come forward and spoken out, this was a different side of a person who I and many others had known in the past.
Would you have called him a friend?
Yes, I probably would have. And so would so many others. You know, people in Democratic politics for a couple of decades appreciated his help and support. And I think these stories coming to light now, and people who never spoke out before having the courage to speak out.
What happens when the power players in Hollywood and politics, sexual exploits are exposed?
So I just want to thank my agent, Kevin Uvain, and God, Harvey Weinstein.
I've known Harvey Weinstein for a long time. I'm not at all surprised to see it.
But I want to say one thing to the American people. I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people.
How many victims were silenced by these men of power?
Arkansas Attorney General raped me and Hillary tried to silence me. I am now 73. It never goes away.
The trainer is a woman, and she trains you to please him sexually. So she trained me for everything that, I was doing. She told me how to please him, and she also taught me, what I like.
How did they do it?
Like how did you meet her? How were you introduced to her?
I got invited to his tour bus. So I went out there to his tour bus, and you have him naked and you have her naked, and I'm looking like, okay, what is this? Because Rob is the one who took my virginity. So I was like, yeah, so what's going on? And he's like, don't worry about it, because I guess he saw that I was looking uneasy, and I wanted to know, what am I doing? And that's when he told me to look at her, and he said, she's going to teach you everything you need to know. So she's going to please you. And he told me to remove my clothes, and that's when me and her engaged in sexual activity. And she was doing everything. Like, I didn't know. Like, I was 16. I didn't know.
Scared? What was how were you feeling when all that?
I'm a gay man and a child abuse victim. Between the ages of 13 and 16, 2 men touched me in ways they should not have. One of those men was a priest. My relationship with my abusers is complicated by the fact that at the time, I didn't perceive what was happening as abusive.
Second time that I saw Mr. Trump was same scenario. He was onlooking at an orgy, and Tiffany came over to me and said that Donald Trump had requested that I perform oral sex on him. He came in, and I was basically tied to a bed with pantyhose, and he tied him, and they were so tight it hurt to even lay there. And I tried to say something. I was like, you just shut up, shut up, bitch. This is basically like he was being really, really rough in it.
Did it go from these niceties to him taking it to a different level?
I knew that it was going downhill and really fast.
Some of his messages are so obscene they can't be shown on television.
I was disgusted. That's part of the reason that I came forward.
And what becomes of a society intoxicated by the demigods in entertainment, a culture of crumbling values spearheaded by sexually deviant tycoons? Hollywood in the political space has been a cesspool of power-hungry overlords and parasitic socialites hoping to eat among the elite, even at the expense of silencing victims of sexual assault. Brooke Shields was a child model and actress who the industry exploited numerous of times. Even many of the men that we celebrate today exploited her sexually as a child, in particular Hugh Hefner's Playboy magazine. But before we get into who and how she was exploited, poverty and the lack of protection of children is always the first indicator of how children are easily exploited.
By chance, I got a job as a baby model, and that was more of an income than my mom was able to make working part-time at a bookstore or at Lord and Taylor or wherever she was working. So it became this path that we were both on together, and it was fun, and it opened up a whole life for us.
Brooke told Channel Guide magazine, but what many pushed as fun, it was actually child pornography. She was 12 when she appeared as a child living in a brothel in 1978's Pretty Baby. As a teenager, she kept going after controversial roles. After the release of Blue Lagoon, a love story about two teenagers, and under 18 Brooke had to testify before Congress that a body double was used in the nude scenes. She followed up with Endless Love, which was initially given an X rating, but was later changed to rated R. Photos taken of her while underage were also included in a Playboy press book, Sugar and Spice. Even Playboy's description of a little girl seeking these roles is problematic, making it seem as if an underage Brooke Shields had full control over her career and what roles she chose.
You know, I had that squeaky high little kid's voice. I was not Lolita. I was not, I was sweet, and yet he said that I looked mature, but I was still very much a little kid. And he said he didn't want a provocative, not like a girl cognizant of her sexuality. And that was definitely me. I'm still working on that. And that was it. And then we got the call, and basically my mom said, look, we get to go do a movie in the summer in New Orleans for 4 months. Do you want to do it? And I wanted to do it, sure. And it was such a beautiful experience. The set was so beautiful. And what was so interesting about, like, even just that scene, I was like that little girl, whereas Violet, I was not dissimilar to that character, and she was. That's all she knew. You know, she knew that this is what these men did. It sort of breaks my heart hearing that clip because it's sweet. She just wants to be taken away and taken care of and loved. And in her world, that's what that was. And that's the way she grew up. And, you know, it was so fascinating because I had never kissed anybody before, and obviously,
except your mom,
except for my mom, yeah. Well, more my mom. I've kissed all the time, and I had to have this kiss with Keith Carradine, and I think he was tortured. He must have been just tortured by it because he's, you know, in his 30s and I'm 11, and he's thinking, oh God, you know, I don't want to scar this kid, and I looked like I was sucking on a lemon. I just kept scrunching up my face. And the director kept getting mad at me. And he'd say, would you please relax your face? Just relax your face. Stop looking like you're sucking on a lemon. And I was like, I don't know how to relax my face. I've never done this before. I don't know what this is. And so Keith took me aside and he said, hey, come here. Got something to tell you. And I said, what? He said, you know that this doesn't count, right? And I said, oh, it doesn't. And he goes, no. He said, the first? He said, that's a totally separate thing. He's like, this totally doesn't count.
What a wonderful thing to say.
I mean, was that not just the most beautiful thing to say? And that's who he was. And that is what was the pervasive feeling for me during that experience. I never once felt taken advantage of or victimized. All of that came after in the press, because the actual beauty of that film, Sven Nykvist was an epic cinematographer, and Louis Malle was an artist. And I mean, I ended up going on to write my thesis about him. And, you know, we were a part of something that even I knew was special and artistic.
Were you able to unscrunch your face?
I was, because I was no longer feeling like I was missing my chance.
This is exactly how exploitation is given a pass in society right in front of our eyes. This is also a way many women can develop Stockholm Syndrome, thinking this behavior of exploitation is okay when it is not. We as a culture have to do better at protecting our young girls. People also forget about young boys in the industry who were sexually exploited, like the group Immature by Chris Stokes. Or directors like Bryan Singer.
Hollywood moguls in particular, unfortunately, in my investigation, have been using their positions of authority to exploit children sexually. And Hollywood's got a problem. For normal kids, the fears of being sexually abused prevents them from being able to talk about it. Here, when you add in the power and influence of Hollywood, it's easy to understand why so many kids are suffering in silence. Mike alleges that he was sexually abused by Bryan Singer, starting when he was 15 years old. Went on for a couple of years, 15, 16, and 17. This abuse started when Mike was invited over to a house owned by the name of Mark Collins Rector. He lived in a house with a man named Chad Shackley. And the two of them would host parties where they would invite Hollywood moguls over, people in the entertainment industry, along with underage boys. They were given drugs, they were given alcohol. Mike alleges that it was during these parties that he was sexually abused. This went on, as I said, in California. Mike was also taken on trips. A couple of those trips were to Hawaii, where he was also sexually abused. What happened at the house?
At the house, it was, I've had drugs put in drinks. I had liquor poured down my throat from being where there were rules in the house of no swimsuits, no clothes out by the pool area. I was raped numerous times in that house by numerous individuals, various types of sexual abuse, all throughout that house. It was just something you were like a piece of meat to these people, and they'd pass you around between them. It was, if I could define what that house was, it's evil. That's what the house was. Okay. As a kid, my mom turned it in to the authorities. We were living here in Los Angeles. Turned it in, and what happened was basically it fell on deaf ears. We didn't get anywhere, and then I basically buried it in me as deep as I possibly could, because that's all I knew what to do. At the one house where it would be, the rules were no swimsuits on or in clothing in the pool area. So out in the pool area, myself and Mr. Singer are out there in the hot tub with other individuals, and to where they would grope you, they'd shove your head under the water for you to try to orally, what's the proper word, but orally molest them, or however the proper wording is, to where they would rape you on the side of the pool. There was, on the side of the hot tub, it was, you were a piece of meat. There was no relationship. You were a piece of meat.
Corey Feldman has no idea what it's like not to be famous. He was just 3 years old in this McDonald's commercial.
I literally was famous before I knew my own name.
His roles defined the 80s. Goonies.
This was my dream, my wish.
Stand By Me.
You call my dad a loony again, and I'll kill you.
License to Drive.
The only difference between you and that greaseball is that he has a license and you don't.
Films that propelled him into the spotlight for his entire youth. But being famous so young, he says, caused serious damage to him and his friends.
Do you feel like you missed out on a normal childhood?
What childhood? I don't know what that means.
A lost childhood and a loss of innocence. He blames the adults, not just those looking to profit from charming children, but also some with far more sinister motives.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh, yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh, yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
Vultures who Feldman says abused him and his best friend, the late child actor Corey Haim, his co-star in The Lost Boys.
Well, what happens if my mom is dating the head vampire?
Feldman says the trauma of that pedophilia contributed to Haim's death.
There's one person to blame in the death of Corey Haim, and that person happens to be a Hollywood mogul. And that person needs to be exposed, but unfortunately I can't be the one to do it. But the person that knows who did it and knows who he is watching right now, I guarantee you. Yeah.
Intriguing.
Yeah. There was a circle of older men that surrounded themselves around this group of kids. And they all had either their own power or connections to great power in the entertainment industry.
Feldman won't name names. And he admits his friend had a struggle with addiction, which he says was a mechanism to cope with his demons.
It was a symptom.
It was a symptom, correct.
Are we in it?
In 2008, the two Coreys confronted each other on their reality show about the dark past they shared.
You let me get around in my life, man, raped, so to speak, when I was about 14 and a half, and I'm saying this right now. What'd you do, man, when you saw that going down when I was 14 to me? What'd you do? You knew about it.
You want to talk about the truth? Okay, well then let's talk about the truth. I was being molested at the same time by somebody else. What'd you do? You know, there's a lot of good people in this industry, but there's also a lot of really, really sick, corrupt people in this industry. And there are people in this industry who have gotten away with it for so long that they feel they're above the law. And that's got to change. That's got to stop.
Elijah Wood's shocking allegations against the entertainment industry. In a new interview with the Sunday Times, the former child star alleges that pedophilia has been a real issue in Hollywood. He tells the publication, quote, "There are a lot of vipers in this industry, people who only have their own interests in mind. What bums me about these situations is that the victims can't speak as loudly as the people in power. That's the tragedy of attempting to reveal what is happening to innocent people. They can be squashed, but their lives have been irreparably damaged." The 35-year-old adds, "If you're innocent, you have very little knowledge of the world and you want to succeed. People with parasitic interests will see you as their prey."
Young girls exploited by R. Kelly like Aaliyah.
Love man, hip-hop star R. Kelly did indeed marry his protege, the 15-year-old singer Aaliyah Houghton. Kelly stated his age as 27, 2 years older than he previously claimed to be, and Aaliyah produced 2 pieces of ID that appeared to show her to be 18. But Aaliyah's publicists continue to insist that she's 15. The Budweiser company dropped her from its Superfest tour because it felt she was too young to be on the road, and most convincingly, the Detroit High School of the Performing Arts acknowledged that Aaliyah is in fact a 10th grade student there. Whether or not she's in legal trouble for passing off fake ID remains to be seen. We will keep you posted.
All time favorite. I like comedies too.
Do you have any aspirations Do you have any aspirations on becoming an actress or maybe, moving into film down the road?
Yeah, I would like to.
It's Friday and I'm ready to slang. Pick up my girls and hit the party scene tonight. Oh, it's alright.
Right now I'm producing a very talented lady, young lady. She's 14, Aaliyah.
Or convicted pedophiles who were in charge of children and teenagers' careers, like the manager of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, Lou Pearlman.
Lou Pearlman took advantage of young men and stole tremendous amounts of money. Lou wanted more from those young boys than they were willing to give. He wanted them to love him. He wanted sex with some of them, but they didn't want him. So he got even.
Band member Lance Bass went one-on-one with Deborah and told her that being NSYNC's manager wasn't enough for Pearlman.
He was the official 6th member of NSYNC.
Which meant what?
Which meant that whatever I made, he would make. And then on top of that, 20%. And then on top of that, the record label commission. He was triple dipping for sure, which as a 16-year-old, you don't understand what that even means. He made a lot off us.
The show says Pearlman stole millions from NSYNC.
We had the #1 album here in America, so we were doing very well here. But we were still $1 million in debt. we'd still not made any money. We were still living off per diem, which was $35 a day.
You lived off $35 a day?
Pretty much. It happened to me when I was 16, 17 years old. When we started, there was someone that, we worked with that was inappropriately touching us. And I was even aware then at 16 that this guy was a pedophile and he was touching me oddly, but I didn't feel victimized at the time because I was very aware of it. But it happens to us too.
Did you say anything?
No, I mean, with the guys, we would talk about it. We would kind of joke about it, but it's not a joking thing. But as a kid, I don't know, it was odd. But I'm glad that we were aware of it and we didn't feel victimized at the time.
Of course, a host of enablers like Milo Yiannopoulos, who was himself a victim of molestation by an adult priest, are complicit as well. When he was on the Joe Rogan show, discussing parties that had underage boys, Joe Rogan, being an enabler himself, did not push for the further names of these Hollywood insiders. Maybe because he is an insider himself. But Hollywood isn't the only industry that uses power to exploit children and people sexually. There are women who lose out on employment opportunities for not having sex with an employer or for speaking out against sexual harassment. There are cases for men as well who have faced sexual harassment and who are also fired for defending women who have faced sexual harassment as well. Sexual assault can happen on any level. Migrant worker women who are raped on farms, factories, and other industries is just one example. In the realm of politics, our own presidents have behaved in the same disturbing behavior. From Thomas Jefferson raping a young girl named Sally Hemings, to Bill Clinton and his countless sexual harassment and sexual assaults, to current President Donald Trump.
Yes.
And Donald Trump invited you all personally.
Yeah. He invited all us. He was having his pageant contest going on, and with his pageant contest, he ended up inviting us to the event.
Tell us what happened, Uncle Luke. What happened to that party that made you have to leave?
Well, I mean, it was just a lot of things going on. A lot of things that I don't care to engage in. And, he showed us the house, showed us the golf course in the back, all these different things. Said, man, great house, nice house. And I think I probably was there for every bit of maybe 45 minutes before I realized all these different things that was going on. And I was like, okay, it's time for me to go here.
Now you understand, you are Uncle Luke, you 2 Live crew, so I mean, we're dying to know what was going on that you couldn't engage in.
Man, it was just some things that I don't really care to discuss. Because I mean, one thing about me, I don't kiss and tell. But at the same time, the party was going on, and it was a lot of things. Put it this way, there were a lot of things going on, a lot of things. So a lot of things in a lot of different rooms. There was a lot of different rooms going on in the house, and every time you open up a door, there was something else going on that I really didn't care to be a part of. So I felt like, hey, look here, man. I'm from Liberty City. At the end of the day, if I wanted to be involved in all those different type of activities, I did that in my hometown. Less long as going to somebody's house where I think they got cameras and everything, be able to take me, and before you know it, you're extorting me. That ain't gonna happen. But one thing about me, I never take no drugs, and I don't get into drugs. So I leave it like that.
Were there drugs there, Uncle Luke?
It was a lot of things up in there. I know I don't take no drugs. I'm gonna leave it like that.
Did you see Donald Trump use any drugs?
No, I didn't see him use no drugs.
So these rooms, presumably there were women in these rooms?
Oh yeah, a lot of women.
How were they?
All over the room.
How were they dressed, Uncle Luke?
Half naked.
Half naked.
Half naked and some naked.
Half naked and some naked.
Yeah.
All right.
We had a house party. They up in there naked.
Was there any assaultive behavior toward women at this Donald Trump party?
No.
No assaultive behavior. Okay.
No, all the women were enjoying themselves like they do. You know, but the thing, let me tell you, the thing is, when you're around, I've been around a lot of models and a lot of these pageant women, because that's what mostly it was. It was mostly pageant women. And a lot of these women ain't of age. So when you got a whole bunch of these women running around, whether they of age or not, you know, there's a lot of things going on. You just, you know, some women look too young. So you keep it moving.
I see.
You know, so it wasn't nobody beating no women, nobody taking advantage of no women. I mean, they were all enjoying themselves. That's what they were there for. But were they old enough to be enjoying themselves? I don't know.
Was there sex?
Of course there was sex.
I guess that's a stupid question now to ask. Okay, so I think I got you now. You're saying that all this was going on and you weren't clear as to whether these were adults. I wasn't clear whether or not they were adults, and I wasn't clear whether or not, you know, whether I wanted to be in that kind of environment where some of these other things that was going on in there. I ain't gonna too much elaborate about everything else what was going on outside of the sexual act. But well, my brother, we love for you too. We love for you too. That's why we on Serious X. Because we can open it up. We on Serious XM. We can bust it wide open right here.
The drugs and the alcohol and the sex and all that, but I ain't gonna talk about the drugs and the alcohol and the sex.
But now you did say that if you were on XM, you could talk about it. So that's why we here, man. I mean, people, inquiring minds want to know.
I said I can use the profanity and all that there, and talk about, you know, naked people and all that. But then I ain't the drug part. I don't want to talk about that part of it. I talk about the sex and all that. All those.
Okay, well, talk about tell us about the sex.
Yeah, it was a lot of sex going on.
Just wide out in the open.
You know what I'm saying? Like you was just imagine the Eyes Wide Shut movie.
I need a cloak with a hood and a mask.
Okay, I think we'll find something for you.
I suppose you'd like the password.
If you'd like, sir.
Fidelio.
Thank you, sir.
I don't think you realize the danger you're in there.
You've been way out of your depth.
You've got to get away before it's too late.
Maybe it's a different one.
Better not be the publicist. No, it's her.
Yeah, that's her, with the gold. I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the I can do anything.
Look at those legs. All I can see is the legs.
No, it looks good.
Come on, shorty.
Oh, nice legs, huh?
Oof, get out of the way, honey. Oh, that's good legs. Go ahead.
It's always good if you don't fall out of the bus. Like Ford, Gerald Ford, remember?
Down below. Pull the ham.
Both Donald Trump and Bill Clinton were close friends with Jeffrey Epstein, an extremely wealthy sex trafficker of underage girls. When Trump makes jokes about how he would have sex with his daughter if they were not genetically related, Politico reported on a case that linked Donald Trump and Bill Clinton to the wealthy billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. The story, for the most part, was buried. New York. A woman who claims in a lawsuit that she was lured into a sex trafficking ring run by billionaire Jeffrey Epstein contends that the depravity began at a Florida resort, now known as the Winter White House, Mar-a-Lago. Virginia Giuffre's civil suit, scheduled to go to trial here later this month, threatens to expose new details of a long-running saga tying together President Donald Trump and former President Bill Clinton, Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta, and other prominent figures, including Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. Epstein, a well-connected Manhattan money manager and philanthropist, was once a regular at Mar-a-Lago and an active supporter in the Clinton Foundation, repeatedly lending his 727 jet to Clinton for trips overseas. Dershowitz defended Epstein amid an investigation into his involvement with underage girls more than a decade ago, and it was Acosta, then the U.S. attorney overseeing South Florida, who allowed Epstein's case to be resolved in state court in 2008. The scandal has spawned a series of drawn-out civil suits, including Giuffre's. Giuffre, formerly Roberts, claimed she was 15 and working as a towel girl at Trump's posh Palm Beach club when she was recruited nearly 2 decades ago into sexual slavery by socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, then Epstein's girlfriend. A lawyer for Trump says that the president was unaware of any wrongdoing by Epstein. The case is scheduled for a May 15th trial, but a final pretrial conference was abruptly canceled Thursday. The development raised suspicions that some type of settlement could be in the works. In recent months, the suit attracted the attention of pro-Trump blogger Mike Cernovich, who intervened in the case in an unsuccessful push to release a large volume of blacked-out court filings. "I want to know what's really going on, and we can't get it," Cernovich told Politico. "This is a big story. My people care." Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 charges: solicitation of prostitution and soliciting a minor for prostitution. He served 13 months in the county jail and paid financial settlements to many of the roughly 40 women the FBI deemed to be its victims.
Because the man who has in the past categorized his business as, quote, investing in people, can now add this distinction to his portfolio: convicted pedophile. The 63-year-old allegedly has an insatiable sexual appetite for girls young enough to be his granddaughter.
Jeffrey Epstein arrested for being a pedophile.
Yes.
You say underage girls. How young are we talking about?
13, 14, 15.
At least 40 of them.
Yes. Arrested for having some kind of sexual relationship, some sort of touching, feeling, and whatever with 40 girls.